So I got a question in response to my last video that I want to spend some time addressing today, which, by the way, I just gotta say, I woke up the other day to my subscriber count jumping from 18 to 25 and having a bunch of these comments on my videos. And, you know, I'm not doing this because I want to just get a bunch of, like, people viewing me spewing nonsense at a camera. But I'm like so grateful for anyone who's like spent time watching a video or interacting with me or asking a fucking question. Like, thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna read the question. I'm gonna spend some time talking about it. It's gonna be great. Okay, so White Rabbit asks, I would like to ask you something. Why do you do what you do? And would you perhaps like to separate yourself from the ego? But why? You already know that what is there is also the truth. And if you want to separate yourself from something that is there, wouldn't you separate yourself from something that is really there and really true? What if there is actually no such thing as ego? Excellent fucking question. And so happy you asked this, White Rabbit, because I want to talk about this in depth. And in order to do so, we have to get a little metaphysical with it, I know, and talk a little bit about the actual mechanics of consciousness itself. So, from the ultimate analysis, it is absolutely true that, like, everything is one, yada, yada, yada. There is no separation. Enlightenment already happens. There is no awakening that you need to attain. Stuff I and like every other non-duality YouTuber has spoken about so fucking much. There's nothing to do, etc., etc. All well and good. At the same time as we are already completely liberated, as being pervades every experience of our lives, we seem to veil our natural understanding of ourselves in ignorance. We have forgotten ourselves, so to speak. We've created this entire playground of being for us to play with. We've given ourselves this supposed body to participate in this whole world of supposed form that we've conjured up simply as a way of expressing who we already are. By creating this world, supposed world, and by immersing ourselves in it so completely, we seem to forget ourselves in the midst of this experience. We become identified with what we take to be an object of experience outside our own sphere of being, if you will. And that identification, that impulse to believe whatever story our thinking mind conjures up about us, is, as I've mentioned before, the root and the substance of all suffering. So in that sense, suffering is not a response to a circumstance that you experience, but rather suffering is a very particular behavior. And in that sense, suffering and ego are synonymous. Because ultimately, just as there's like no such thing as straying from God, straying from yourself, there is no such thing as ego. There never was an ego in the first place. No one has ever actually been the character that they think they are, right? You've never, ever actually been separate. However, you've gotten lost in the experience of what you take to be Earth, what we take to be Earth. And so by losing ourselves in our experience in such a way that we believe all of these stories we come up with about it all, we suffer. Ego, then, is not an entity. It's not an object. It's not even the character you think you are, but rather it is an activity. And it's always the same activity. The instant that you take yourself to be something that you are at your fundamental level not, you are engaging on the terms of the ego. Well and good. But why am I talking about this at all, right? Well, if everything's already liberated, if everything's already free, then why use terms like ego? Why talk about consciousness in the first place? Why put a ring light on me and set up this whole set and make these videos? Well, because so much of the world fucking suffers, right? The vast majority of supposed people on Earth, we take ourselves to be something we're not. And all discord with other supposed individuals, all war, all aggression, any act of selfishness comes from the fear that is inherent with the belief that you are a finite entity. Mercy to the whims of the world. So even though, everything is already one, you never escape God no matter how identified you are in any story, it wouldn't be very useful for me to just get on camera and just say over and over again, everything's one, causeless joy is your birthright, just be happy, just be, bro. Because, we've gotten so caught up in suffering that we kind of have to work our own way out of the jungle, right? One spiritual teacher I've worked with before said that spiritual practice is basically using a thorn to remove a thorn. Or in other words, all practice that you're doing, right, comes with this presupposition that there is a supposed awakened state that you can get to. And even though that presupposition is not true, even though it's an illusion, it's still at least temporarily useful to engage with yourself on those terms, because there are pockets of resistance to the freedom that you already are. And sometimes those pockets of resistance are incredibly dense and can feel like they're frozen in different points of your supposed body. And engaging with concepts such as ego and the thinking mind and spirituality itself is a way of using a thorn, using spiritualism to remove, if you will, the thorn of contraction, of identification. Really, there is no spiritual path that's truer than any other spiritual path. There is no action or way of thinking that is more or less God. Yet, some ways of expressing understanding can feel more direct than others. Some ways of practicing can be more efficient than others at bringing you to the clarity which is already inherent to your being. Here on this channel, and in non-duality circles in general, the emphasis is being as direct and upfront as possible, as direct and upfront as language can get to. And again, it's never going to be quite there, right? Because you're engaging with separation by engaging with language. But the goal is to be as direct as possible. That does mean that we have to make some concessions to the thinking mind, because the thinking mind is the faculty through which we engage with the supposed world on the terms of supposed separation, right? It's kind of like if a child drops an ice cream, I always use ice cream analogies. If a child drops an ice cream on the ground, and just starts bawling their eyes out, you kind of have to work with that child a bit, you got to meet them where they're at. You don't just want to tell them, you don't need ice cream to be happy, joy is causeless. I mean, maybe you can see what happens, depends on the child, I guess. But the relative world, so to speak, is incredibly complicated and fucked up and just an absolute mess. And so it's sometimes you just have to be realistic about where you can meet people, I could just sit on camera and be silent for 10 minutes and I would be just as much in God as I am right now. But one of those is going to be more effective as a means of communication. especially when it comes to like communicating virtually with people who aren't in the room with me, even though there is no room, yada, yada, yada. The thing about like spirituality is that there are infinite paths up the mountain. Really, like, if you, like, no matter what spiritual tradition you pick, if you are honest with yourself, if you are authentic, and if you follow that spiritual tradition to its ultimate end, so to speak, you will be in the exact same place within yourself as someone who, you know, non-dualed their way to the mountaintop. And really, that is just a reflection of the fact that the only true path, the only true understanding is simply just a matter of self-honesty. If you were in this instant to be 100% absolutely transparent to yourself, as honest can be, you would never suffer again. And that would be the same if that honesty expressed itself in Christian language, or non-dual language, or Vedantic language, or whatever the fuck it is. And the path, really, is just one of simplification upon simplification. It's kind of like, you know, your mind, especially in the beginning, loves to like settle on concepts, right? And you're always catching yourself on this. And your mind will like, as peace starts to flourish and blossom in your being, it will settle on more and more refined concepts. And those concepts are all ultimately concepts which reinforce in subtle ways the idea, the image of separation. Yet, you know, you can see how some of those concepts are more, it's like there's like a finer energy to them, a finer substance in this one concept over another. Like the concept that I am infinite eternal being has a different experiential set of energies associated with it than the concept I am a body. If I don't find food, I'm going to perish forever. And like, you get to a point where you do really see the futility of the thinking mind to get you what you crave. Yet, like, you don't just, like, disappear, you know? I mean, there was never any you to begin with, yada, yada, yada. But, like, you are still engaging with this faculty, which is still, like, a means of expressing truth. It will be a distorted expression of truth. It will be truth as seen through a stained glass window, but it's still truth. So why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I fucking love God. And because I personally struggled for so fucking long with just this tangled, or what seems to be this tangled knot in my mind that I felt like I had to get myself out of. And so much just relentless peace and just joy and love for like fucking everyone has emerged. Love for myself has emerged by really being honest with myself. And so if I can say anything from a place of that self-honesty on a camera, if I can upload that to YouTube, and if somebody resonates with that in some way, if there's some coordination of frequencies, if you will, I know, very all over the place, then that's beautiful. I love that. And that's gonna mean that, like, you know, sometimes ego will be talked about in ways that will seem upon first glance to validate the notion that there is an ego in the first place. But it's all tongue-in-cheek. And it's very important to remember that. White Rabbit is absolutely right. But like all of this is tongue-in-cheek. That's just how the game works. You know, like, was it Krishnamurti who said that his only secret is that he doesn't mind what happens, you know? Like, I'm kind of all over the place, so I'm gonna finish this video up. But really, the whole point of any of the waffling about non-duality or whatever the fuck is just to say that there's another way to live your life where you don't have to be attached to any of the labels that you or the civilization you live in imposes upon you. There is a way to live your life that is one of complete and utter freedom, total authenticity, unconditional love, the inability for any outcome of your experience or supposed outcome of your experience, the inability for any story you tell about yourself to take you away from who you are, and to experience all of that knowingly. And for it not to be an experience at all, but just to be so obvious. just to be the way everything is, the isness of everything. Okay, you get the point. Thank you so much again for watching these videos, man. Oh, I love doing this. I made an Instagram. Yeah, I'm an Instagram bitch. I have a personal Instagram and I have like a non-duality specific Instagram. It's linked in my profile, and I guess I'll probably link it in the description or something too. More videos coming soon. Ah! God is so great. Okay, bye.